All right, everyone, welcome back to part 2 of my series on the virtues of Naval Ravikant. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I've linked to part 1 of this series in the description, so be sure to check out that video if you like this one. But anyways, on to today's subject, Naval on industry. So industry can be a confusing word, and it's used to describe entire sectors like the steel industry or the pharmaceutical industry. But for the sake of today's video, we're going to define the word industry as the disposition to be hardworking or diligent. Essentially, it's the virtue of persistence in putting in the time and effort necessary to achieve a desired outcome. Industry is a virtue that has long been celebrated and played a large part in the success of America as a nation. In fact, industry was popularized by founding father Benjamin Franklin and became one of his 13 virtues for developing character. I believe Naval's dedication to wealth generation and recent commitment to building his personal brand are a living example of industry in action, and my aim is to break down his philosophy on the virtue throughout this video. The bottom line is this: being industrious is hard. If it wasn't, everyone would be hardworking creators, and the world would be a much more productive place. But reality is filled with inefficiencies and ideas that never reach fruition. Don't get me wrong. You do not have to be productive 24/7 to become successful or to harness the power of industry. But you do need to take advantage of the valuable time and energy you have. So how does one make the most of their time and effort on this planet? How can we use all of the power of industry to reach our goals? My interpretation of Naval's message breaks down into 4 core principles: belief, focus, leverage, and patience. Belief. As I mentioned in my last video, intellectual independence, the ability to think for yourself, is foundational to happiness and success. Its role in industry is no different. You need to use your mind to your advantage. It begins with convincing yourself that you can be successful, that you can be wealthy, whatever your definition of wealth is. And you can, because as Naval explains, we can all be wealthy.
I believe everybody can be wealthy. Everybody. It's not a zero-sum game. It is a positive-sum game. You create something brand new, you exchange it with me for something brand new I've created. There's higher utility for both of us. The sum of the value created is positive. It's not like status, where it's like you're higher up, I'm lower down. You're president, so I must be vice president. You're a +1, I'm a -1. It has to cancel to 0. We should be all for playing positive-sum ethical games.
Positive-sum ethical games. I think that's something we can all get on board with. But how does that make us all wealthy? Naval offers the following thought exercise.
But yes, everybody can be rich. And let me give you a thought exercise. Okay. Imagine if tomorrow we could wave a wand and everybody was trained as a scientist or an engineer. Everybody. Even if you weren't very good, you had enough understanding of computers, you could write some code, you could build some hardware. And don't tell me people can't do it. Because they can. That's just the tyranny of soft expectations. That's just you looking down on somebody else. They can do it. They just have to be educated. Now, if they're educated all as hardware, software engineers, scientists, biologists, technicians, hard sciences, not the social sciences, we would all be done within 5 years. Robots would be doing everything from cleaning toilets to cooking food to flying airplanes to driving Ubers. And what would we be doing? We would be doing all creative jobs to entertain each other and researching science and technology. We would have wonderful lives. So it is really just a question of education, nothing else.
There's no doubt that there are more than enough resources in the universe to meet the needs of humans. There are more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on every beach in the world. We have an abundance of resources. We just don't know how to harness them quite yet. But as Naval states, solving our problems is a matter of education. Once we believe that we can accomplish our goals, we must put in the hard work to learn how to achieve them. And the beauty is that anyone, regardless of most circumstances, can will their way to success with enough grit.
I mean, remember, I started as a poor kid in India, right? So if I can make it, anybody can in that sense. Now, obviously, I had all my limbs and I had my mental faculties and I did have an education. So there are some prerequisites you can't get past. But if you're listening to this video or podcast, you probably have the requisite means at your disposal, which is a functioning body and a functioning mind.
While achieving success the first time around is undoubtedly difficult, the beauty is that the path gets easier the longer you stay in the game, because you build skills that compound. Naval argues that educating yourself helps develop skills that can never be taken away.
I like to think that if I lost all my money and if you drop me on a random street in any English-speaking country, within 5 to 10 years, I'd be wealthy again, right? Because it's just a skill set that I've developed and I think anyone can develop.
With that in mind, it seems that virtually anything is within the realm of possibility. You can accomplish most goals over the span of a lifetime. It is this optimistic view that ultimately leads to some of the world's most incredible innovation. But it's important to remember that all optimism must be coupled with a fair dose of rationality.
Yeah, essentially, to create things, you have to be a rational optimist. Rational in the sense that you have to see the world for what it really is, and yet you have to be optimistic about your own capabilities and your capability to get things done. We all know people who are consistently pessimistic, who will shoot down everything. Everyone in their life has like the helpful, critical guy, right? He thinks he's being helpful, but he's actually being critical and he's a downer on everything. That person will not only never do anything great in their lives, they'll prevent other people around them from doing something great. They think their job is to shoot holes in things. And it's okay to shoot holes in things as long as you come up with a solution. And all the really successful people I know have a very strong action bias. They just do things. The easiest way to figure out if something's viable or not is by doing it. At least do the first step and the second step and the third and then decide. So if you want to be successful in life, creating wealth or having good relationships or being fit or even being happy, you need to have an action bias towards getting what you want. And you have to be optimistic about it, not irrationally. There's nothing worse than someone who's just like foolhardy and chasing it's not work. That's why I say rational optimist. But you have to be rational, know all the pitfalls, know the downsides, but still keep your chin up. I mean, you've got one life on this planet. Why not try to build something big?
While rationality is important in the long run, it should not be used too liberally, because rationality can often make us lose sight of what's truly possible. As the saying goes, every genius was first regarded as crazy, and you can't be crazy and rational at the same time. So feel free to ditch rationality from time to time in order to dream bigger, because thinking big is not only a powerful motivational tool, it's also a necessity for creating impact. And in a lot of ways, it's actually pragmatic.
This is the beauty of Elon Musk and why I think he inspires so many people. It's just because he takes on really, really big, audacious tasks, and he provides an example for people to think big. And it takes a lot of work to build even small things. I don't think the corner grocery store owner is working any less hard than Elon Musk or pouring any less sweat and toil into it, maybe even more. But for whatever reason, education, circumstance, they didn't get the chance to think as big. So the outcome's not as big. So it's just better to think big, obviously rationally within your means, to stay optimistic. The cynics and the pessimists, what they're really saying, and fortunate, but they're saying, I've given up. I don't think I can do anything. And so the world to me just looks like a world where nobody can do anything. And so why should you go do something? Because if you fail, then I'm right, which is great. But if you succeed, then you just make me look bad.
Focus. So once you have the power of conviction on your side, it's your responsibility to practice the discipline required to reap the benefits. In our chaotic world filled with unlimited distractions, focus is more elusive than ever, thus making it more important than ever. As Alexander Graham Bell once said, concentrate all of your thoughts upon the work at hand. The sun's rays do not burn until brought to a focus. Focus is crucial to living an industrious life. Lack of focus not only leaves our efforts unleveraged, but it also robs our minds of the peace required to achieve flow and do our best work. To combat the constant drain of desire, Naval recommends picking one thing, no more, no less, to suffer over and mitigating the remainder of your desires.
Desire to me is a contract that you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. Okay, and I keep that in front of mind. So when I'm unhappy about something, I look for what is the underlying desire that I have that's not being fulfilled. It's okay to have desires. You're a biological creature. You're put on this earth. You have to do something. You have to have desires. You have a mission. But don't have too many. Don't pick them up unconsciously. Don't pick them up randomly. Don't have thousands of them. My coffee is too cold. Doesn't taste quite right. I'm not sitting perfectly. Oh, I wish it were warmer. Oh, my dog, pooped in the lawn. I didn't like that. Whatever it is. Pick your one overwhelming desire, and it's okay to suffer over that one. But on all the others, you want to let them go so you can be calm and peaceful and relaxed. And then you'll perform a better job.
In order to become world-class at anything, you need repeated, deliberate practice. There are no ways around focused work. And if you want to be successful, you'll need to be at the top of your domain.
If you really want to get paid in this world, you want to be number one at whatever it is that you're doing. And it can be niche. That's the point. It can literally be you're getting paid for just being you. At this point, some of the more successful people in the world are that way. Oprah gets paid for being Oprah. Joe Rogan gets paid for being Joe Rogan. And they're being authentic to themselves. So what this tweet is trying to say simultaneously is that you want to be number one, but you want to keep changing what you do until you're number one. You can't just pick something arbitrary. You can't say, I'm going to be the fastest runner in the world, and now you got to beat Usain Bolt. That's too hard of a problem. But what you can do is you can keep changing what your objective is until it arrives to your specific knowledge, your skill sets, your position, your capabilities, your location, your interests, and then converges to making you number one. So when you're searching for what to do, you actually have two different foci that you have to keep in mind at all points. And one of those is, I want to be the best at what I do. And the second is, what I do is flexible so that I am the best at it, until you arrive at a comfortable place where you're like, yes, this is something I can be amazing at while still being authentic to who I am.
As Naval mentions, we need to find a domain we can thrive in while still being authentic to ourselves. In fact, the two are almost codependent. You need to work on things that come natural to you.
I think it's important that one not start assembling things too deliberately, because you do want to pick things where you are a natural. Everyone is a natural at something. We're all familiar with that phrase, a natural. Oh, this person's a natural at meeting men or women. This person's a natural socialite. This person's a natural programmer. This person's a natural reader. So whatever you are a natural at, you want to double down on that. And then there are probably multiple things you're natural at, because personalities and humans are very complex. So we want to be able to take the things that you are natural at and combine them so that you automatically, just through sheer interest and enjoyment, end up top 25 or top 10 or top 5% at a number of things.
Truly great output shouldn't even feel like work. It should feel like a hobby. An analysis of the most accomplished people verifies this. They all genuinely love what they do, at least to a certain extent. This is a crucial principle to focus because, as Naval explains, our brains are quick to adapt to rewards like money, possessions, and status. This is why it's important to pick something you love independent of these external factors.
One of the secrets to happiness is to really embrace what you're doing in that moment. That's trite, but where that comes from is saying, I only want to do actions that are complete in and of themselves, right? If I'm looking for some ulterior motive down the line, it's not going to materialize. And if you think it is, maybe even if it does, it'll be very short-lived. Anything you want in your life, whether it was a car or whether it was a girl or whether it was money, when you got it, a year later, you were back to zero. Your brain had hedonically adapted to it, and you were looking for the next thing.
A mentor of mine once called this principle rigging the game so you can win no matter what. In order to achieve maximal success, it's helpful to make sure a majority of your focus is spent on things that provide wins, regardless of forces outside of your locus of control. Let's use this video as an example. It's out of my control how many people watch and subscribe to my channel, but the process of creating this content in and of itself is a win for me because I get to further internalize Naval's principles, practice my content creation skills, and gain valuable first-hand marketing experience. It's a win-win-win in my eyes, and if you all enjoy the content, that's the cherry on top. That being said, creating these scenarios is easier said than done. It takes hard work, experimentation, and patience, and perhaps the most difficult aspect is developing a stoic approach to competition.
So sometimes you just get trapped in the wrong game because you're competing. And the best way to escape competition, to get away from the specter of competition, which is not just stressful and nerve-wracking, but will often drive you to just the wrong answer. The way to escape competition is to just be authentic to yourself. If you are fundamentally building and marketing something that is just an extension of who you are, no one can compete with you on that. Who's going to compete with Joe Rogan or Scott Adams? It's impossible. Is somebody else going to come along and write a better Dilbert? No. Is someone going to compete with Bill Watterson and create a better Calvin and Hobbes? No. They're being authentic. This is easiest to see in art. Artists are, by definition, all naturally authentic. But even entrepreneurs are authentic. Who's going to be Elon Musk? Who's going to be Jack Dorsey? These people are authentic, and the businesses and products that they create are authentic to their desires and their means.
Instead of concentrating your energy on what your competition is working on, It makes infinitely more sense to zero in on your authentic interests and skills. And if you're not entirely sure what those might be, the only solution is spending time tinkering and getting comfortable with constant, small failures.
It's the number of iterations that drives a learning curve. So the more iterations you can have, the more shots on goal you can have, the faster you're going to learn. It's not just about the hours put in. It's actually a combination of the two. But I think just the way we're built and the way that the world presents itself, the world offers us very easily the opportunity to do the same thing over and over and over again. But really, we'd be better served if we went off and found ways to do new things from scratch. And doing something new the first time is painful because you're wandering into uncertain territory and high odds are that you will fail. So you just have to get very, very comfortable with frequent small failures.
Leverage. Once you've determined your authentic offering and applied intense focus towards cultivating it, your next mission should be to get leverage within your domain. Leverage looks different in every domain, but the core principle is universal. Your outputs are not the same as your inputs. As someone chasing excellence, it's your mission to find favorable asymmetries, instances where a small amount of work or resources can lead to outsized returns. As Naval details, this is rarely, if ever, done through hourly work.
People seem to think that you can create wealth and make money through work, and it's probably not going to work. There are many reasons for that, but the most basic is just that your inputs are very closely tied to your outputs. In almost any salaried job, even one that's paying a lot per hour, like a lawyer or a doctor, you're still putting in the hours, and every hour you get paid. So what that means is when you're sleeping, you're not earning. When you're retired, you're not earning. When you're on vacation, you're not earning. And you can't earn non-linearly. If you look at even doctors who get rich, like really rich, it's because they open a business. They open like a private practice, and that private practice builds a brand, and that brand attracts people, or they build some kind of a medical device or a procedure or a process where they have intellectual property. So essentially, you're working for somebody else. And that person is taking on the risk and has the accountability and the intellectual property and the brand. So they're just not going to pay you enough. They're going to pay you the bare minimum that they have to get you to do the job. And that can be a high bare minimum, but it's still not going to be true wealth where you're retired. Everybody who really makes money at some point owns a piece of a product or a business or some kind of IP. That can be through stock options, but usually the real wealth is created by starting your own companies or by, even investors. They're in an investment firm and they're buying equity. So these are much more the routes to wealth. It doesn't come through the hours.
This insight echoes the old adage of work smarter, not harder. Thanks to leverage, the sheer number of hours you spend working doesn't determine your impact.
We like to think that we like to view the world as linear, which is I'm going to put in 8 hours of work. I'm going to get back 8 hours of output, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't work that way. Guy running the corner grocery store is working just as hard or harder than you and me. How much output is he getting? What you do, who you do it with, how you do it, way more important than how hard you work, right? Outputs are non-linear based on the quality of the work that you put in. The right way to work is like a lion. You and I are not like cows. We're not meant to graze all day, right? We're meant to hunt like lions. We're closer to carnivores in our omnivorous development than we are to herbivores. As a modern knowledge worker athlete, as an intellectual athlete, you want to function like an athlete, which means you train hard, then you sprint, then you rest, then you reassess, you get your feedback loop, then you train some more, then you sprint again, then you rest, then you reassess. This idea that you're going to have linear output just by cranking every day at the same amount of time, that's machines. Machines should be working 9 to 5. Humans are not meant to work 9 to 5.
We're not meant to be cranking out robotic, repetitive tasks. And to make matters worse, these types of tasks can be commoditized away by cheaper labor and technology. Instead, we're designed to experiment, match patterns, and connect seemingly disparate ideas. We're built to develop what Naval calls specific knowledge.
If you want to make money, you have to get paid at scale. And why you? That's accountability. At scale, that's leverage. And just you getting paid as opposed to somebody else getting paid, that's specific knowledge. The thing is that we have this idea that everything can be taught. Everything can be taught in school. And it's not true that everything can be taught. In fact, the most interesting things cannot be taught, but everything can be learned. And very often that learning either comes from some innate characteristics in your DNA, or it could be through your childhood where you learn soft skills, which are very, very hard to teach later on in life, or it's something that is brand new, so nobody else knows how to do it either, or it's true on the job training because you're pattern matching into highly complex environments, building judgment in a specific domain. Classic example is investing, but it could be in anything. It could be in judgment in running a fleet of trucks. It could be judgment in weather forecasting. So specific knowledge is the knowledge that you care about.
As I mentioned, leverage comes in a lot of different forms. In his series on how to get rich without getting lucky, Naval breaks down how we can use resources like labor, capital, technology, and media to build a fully leveraged business. These are all important to keep in mind when launching your company.
So network effects are a very powerful concept. When you're picking a business model, it's really good idea to pick a model where you can benefit from network effects, low marginal costs, and scale economies. And these tend to go together. Like anything that has zero marginal cost of production obviously has scale economies. And things that have zero marginal cost of reproduction very often tend to have network effects because it doesn't cost you anything more to stamp out the thing. So then you can just create little hooks for users to add value to each other. So you should always be thinking about how your users, your customers can add value to each other, because that is the ultimate form of leverage. You're on the beach in the Bahamas or you're sleeping at night and your customers are adding value to each other.
Hopefully, you're starting to understand the power of leverage within the context of entrepreneurship. Because at the end of the day, you will likely want to create your own business to take full advantage of untapped leverage.
At some level, every founder has to lie to every employee of the company that they have, where they have to convince them that it's better for you to work for me than it is to do what I did and go work for yourself. So I've always had a hard time with that, which is why the only honest way in my companies, I've recruited entrepreneurs. And I tell them, you're going to get to be entrepreneurial in this company. And the day you're ready to go start your own next thing, I'm going to support you. I'm never going to get in the way of you starting a company. But this can be a good place for you to learn how to build a good team and build a good culture, how to find product market fit, to perfect your skills and meet some amazing people while you figure out exactly what it is you're going to do, because positioning, timing, deliberation are very important when starting a company.
Once you have leverage, though, what do you do with it? This is where judgment becomes so crucial.
Once you have leverage, what do you do with it? Well, the first part of your career is spent hustling to get leverage. Once you have the leverage, then you want to slow down a bit because your judgment really matters. It's like you've gone from steering your sailboat around to now you're steering an ocean liner or a tanker. You have a lot more at risk, but you have a lot more to gain as well. You're carrying a much higher payload. So in an age of infinite leverage, judgment becomes the most important skill. Warren Buffett is so wealthy now because of his judgment. Even if you were to take away all of Warren's money, tomorrow investors would come out of the woodwork and hand him $100 billion because they know his judgment is so good. And they would give him a big chunk of that $100 billion to invest. So ultimately, everything else that you do is actually setting you up to apply your judgment.
Patience. Well, I firmly believe in all the aforementioned principles. They won't work for you unless you do, and on a long enough time scale. Because success and wealth accumulation require patience and hard work over years, not months or days.
It's
Wow.
not easy. It's
not easy.
actually really freaking hard.
Yeah.
It is the hardest thing you will do, but it's also the rewarding thing. You know, look at the kids who are born rich, no meaning to their lives.
It's a terrible place.
Your real resume is just a cataloging of all your suffering, right? If I were to ask you to describe your real life to yourself, when you look back on your deathbed, you're going to go back and say, what are the interesting things I've done? And it's all going to be around the sacrifices that you made and the hard things that you did. Anything you're given doesn't matter. You know, you have your 4 limbs, you have your brain, you have your head, you have your skin. That's all for granted. So you have to do hard things anyway to create your own meaning in life. Making money is a fine one. Yeah, struggle. It is hard. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's really hard, but the tools are all available.
But as Naval explains, the pursuit of success and wealth generation is a worthwhile one because it gives your life meaning. And to be clear, it's not the money that brings us happiness. Rather, it's the hard work and toil we put into solving the problem of making money. Said another way, life is about the process, not the result. And the fastest way to cultivate the patience required to stick to the process comes from clearing your calendar and your mind.
In our profession, especially when you're high visibility, the problem with peaking is that you then get drowned in death of 1,000 cuts. People have expectations of you. Hey, Joe, can you come to my event? Hey, Joe, can you look at my business plan? Hey, Joe, can you give me advice on this? Can you talk to my friend? Can you come in this podcast? You're just being assaulted all the time with inbound opportunities. So you have no time to start over with anything. So you have to ruthlessly disappoint everybody, eliminate and clear your schedule, drop all the meetings, not even respond to the emails. It's the only way you're going to be able to start over with anything.
Because without this free time and space to think and create, we'll never be able to push the envelope forward with new ideas and inventions.
A busy calendar and a busy mind will destroy your ability to do great things in this world. If you want to be able to do great things, whether you're a musician or whether you are an entrepreneur or whether you're an investor, you need free time and you need a free mind.
I do my best to follow the advice of Derek Sivers when a new work opportunity comes my way. If I'm not excited enough by the project to think, hell yeah, I'm in, I tactfully turn down the engagement and recommend a friend or a competitor who I think is better suited for the work. This allows me to focus my valuable time and energy on the things I'm authentically interested in. And this works because, as previously mentioned, when I'm working on things that energize me, things that I truly care about, the time appears to fly. My job rarely even feels like work, which makes being patient a natural byproduct. I stay in the game not because I want to win it per se, but because I actually love playing it. This attitude has helped me tremendously thus far and makes the journey pleasurable. This is important because there is rarely an end in sight when pursuing success. Put simply, it takes time, and how much is anyone's best guess?
Even once you have all of these pieces in place, there is an indeterminate amount of time that you're going to have to put in. And if you're counting, you will run out of patience before it actually arrives. So you just have to make sure that you give these things a proper time. Life is long and everybody wants it immediately, but the world is an efficient place. Immediate doesn't work. You do have to put in the time. You do have to put in the hours. And so I think you just have to put yourself in the position with the specific knowledge, with the accountability, with the leverage, with the authentic skill set that you have to be the best in the world at what you do. And then you have to enjoy it and just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it and don't keep track and don't keep count. Because if you do, you will run out of time.
So there you have it. Belief, focus, leverage, and patience. 4 keys to being industrious and getting the most out of your life. Please let me know what you thought of this video in the comment section below. And if you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay in touch for future updates.